Welcome to The Explainer. We are incredibly excited to have you with us today as we unpack one of the most fascinating segments of the entire 2026 World Cup. Absolutely. Coming into this, Group G was supposed to be a completely straightforward affair for the heavyweights. But wow, did it turn into an absolute roller coaster. We're talking sheer unpredictability, massive historic milestones, intense off-pitch drama, and literally some of the most thrilling tactical shifts of the whole tournament. You honestly couldn't script this stuff if you tried. Okay, let's just quickly lay out our agenda so you know where we're headed. First up, the Group G overview. Second, slow starts and historic wins.
Then we'll hit number 3, off-pitch controversies and logistics. Fourth, Belgium awakens against New Zealand. And we'll wrap it all up with our 5th point, final standings and knockouts.
All right, let's get right into Section 1, the Group G overview. So, coming into the tournament, the FIFA rankings painted a pretty clear picture of what the expectations were. Plus, this entire group was uniquely situated on the west coast of the United States and Canada. That meant the stakes were incredibly high right from the opening whistle, and they were playing in some truly massive venues. We're talking about SoFi Stadium in LA, the notoriously loud Lumen Field up in Seattle, and the magnificent BC Place in Vancouver.
Right, and just navigating those different climates and those intense travel schedules, that added a real layer of complexity to everything. You had Belgium sitting pretty in pot 1, ranked 9th in the world. They were the undisputed favorites to just cruise right through. Then you had this really fierce mid-tier battle, Iran at 20th and Egypt at 29th. Both of those teams came in knowing essentially they were fighting each other for that crucial second-place qualification spot.
Exactly. And rounding out the whole group, you had New Zealand, ranked 85th. On paper, sure, they were the clear underdogs. But as we always say with the World Cup, these games aren't played on paper. The atmospheres in those massive arenas really set the tone, and the reality of how this group played out was about to look very, very different from those initial projections. Which brings us to Section 2, slow starts and historic wins. Moving into match days 1 and 2, this is really where the script just got completely flipped. The narrative going in was that Belgium's golden generation, or, what's left of it, would effortlessly dictate play. Instead, we saw a group that was incredibly tight, super physical, and fraught with tension from the very first kickoff.
The early contrast was just jarring. On one hand, you had Belgium struggling through a highly frustrating 1-1 draw against Egypt, where their only goal was actually an Egyptian own goal. And then they followed that up with a surprisingly flat, scoreless 0-0 draw against Iran. Across those first 2 games, the heavy favorites couldn't score a single goal from open play. Crazy, right?
Contrast that immediately with Egypt. After holding Belgium to that tough 1-1 draw, Egypt surged forward and secured a dominant 3-1 victory over New Zealand. They played with this ferocious energy and a really direct attacking style that just completely overwhelmed the New Zealand defense. So while the tournament favorites looked entirely stuck in the mud, Egypt was building this massive, undeniable momentum. And that 3-1 win for Egypt brings us to an incredibly powerful number, 92.
Yes, 92 years. That is exactly how long Egypt waited for their first ever World Cup victory. They made their tournament debut all the way back in 1934, and despite appearances in 1990 and 2018, they had actually never won a game on the biggest stage.
So when that final whistle blew in Vancouver against New Zealand, it wasn't just about 3 points. It was literally the exorcism of nearly a century of World Cup heartbreak. The sheer emotion of seeing the Egyptian players collapsing on the pitch and listening to the roar from their fans in the stands, it was easily one of the most poignant highlights of the entire group stage. Now, what's really interesting is how these specific players executed that historic triumph, because it wasn't an accident. It was a total masterclass in stepping up when it mattered most. Imam Asher was an absolute revelation. He won Man of the Match in their opening game against Belgium with a brilliant goal, and he just put in this relentless, tireless midfield work that completely disrupted Belgium's rhythm.
Sure. And then against New Zealand, the big names absolutely stepped up to the plate. Mustafa Zika was incredibly dynamic out on the wing. He was constantly terrorizing the fullbacks and eventually scored a crucial goal. And of course, Captain Mohamed Salah. He scored, he led the line, and he provided that vital, stabilizing veteran presence that Egypt desperately needed to keep their composure and finally get over that 92-year hurdle.
Okay, let's shift gears for a second to Section 3, off-pitch controversies and logistics. To fully understand the environment of Group G, we have to recognize that the World Cup is a massive logistical undertaking. And sometimes local planning and international geopolitics collide right in the middle of the sporting schedule. The timeline of events here is actually particularly important to follow.
Right. So the local Seattle organizing committee had spent months planning a pride match well in advance to celebrate local LGBTQ events. To be clear, this was entirely a local initiative, not an official FIFA endorsement. However, after the official draw and the scheduling were finalized much later, it purely coincidentally fell out that this specific Pride match aligned with the fixture between Egypt and Iran.
Now, both of these are nations where LGBT rights are strictly limited and homosexuality is punishable by law. So this coincidental scheduling immediately created a massive point of friction off the pitch, effectively blending a pre-planned local celebration with the rigid legal and cultural realities of the participating nations. Both federations reacted officially to the local branding. Iranian Football Federation President Mehdi Taj stated both countries had objections, and he called the branding an irrational move. In fact, Iran even went as far as requesting FIFA to ban pride flags inside the stadium, a request which FIFA ultimately rejected. Similarly, the Egyptian Football Association sent a formal letter directly to the FIFA Secretary General. In their correspondence, they stated that they rejected in absolute terms any LGBTQ connections or promotional activities tied to their game. It was a very clear, unyielding clash between the local organizers' long-held plans and the participating nations' laws and stances. And adding another significant layer to all these off-pitch complexities were the severe travel logistics caused by geopolitical tensions. Because of established U.S. travel restrictions, the Iranian squad actually could not legally base their daily training camp within the United States borders.
Yeah, so instead, they had to set up their operational base camp down in Tijuana, Mexico. For their U.S.-based games, the team was required to physically cross the international border and commute in. Even though the U.S. did eventually ease restrictions slightly to let them arrive in Seattle 2 days early for their final match, that constant, grueling travel out of their host country created a highly unusual, taxing, and really disjointed environment for the entire squad.
And the toll this took was really best summarized by Iran coach Amir Galanoy following the tournament, when he spoke directly to the press regarding the fairness of these arrangements. Exactly. He stated, "The host country treated us very unfairly. Had the host nation allowed us to arrive 2 weeks earlier to be more prepared, we would have been in better shape, physically, mentally." He concluded with a direct plea, urging FIFA not to let host nations treat players and teams this way in future World Cups. It clearly took a significant mental and physical toll on their overall preparation. Let's bring things back to the pitch with Section 4. Belgium awakens against New Zealand. So, we arrive at the absolute climax of Matchday 3. Belgium, the overwhelming group favorites, were now facing the very real threat of an embarrassing early elimination if they didn't get a result against New Zealand. The pressure was just immense. The media back in Belgium was highly critical, the fans were nervous, and the players absolutely knew that a draw or a loss could send them packing early. They literally had no choice but to deliver. And wow, the turnaround was staggering. We talked earlier about their sluggish, scoreless open play in those first 2 games, but against New Zealand, it was like watching a completely different team emerge from the tunnel. They exploded for 5 goals in a 5-1 victory. They registered an unbelievable 35 shots during the match. It was a complete offensive clinic that instantly reminded everyone exactly why they were ranked 9th in the world coming into this tournament. All that hesitation was completely gone, replaced by pure, flowing, ruthless attacking football. To understand how they flipped the switch so dramatically, we really have to look at the tactical adjustments made by manager Rudy Garcia. He essentially shifted their build-up into a highly aggressive 4-2-4 formation. This allowed their forwards to drop deep, drag defenders totally out of position, and completely overload the New Zealand defense. A massive part of this, and honestly it was just brilliant to watch, was the deliberate isolation of Jeremy Doku out on the wing. Garcia wanted Doku in one-on-one situations as much as humanly possible, knowing his electric speed and dribbling would be an absolute nightmare for the fullbacks. Oh, for sure. And pulling all the strings behind that frantic movement was Youri Tielemans. He acted as the ultimate conductor. He set this incredibly fast tempo and fed those pinpoint long switch passes to Doku and Leandro Trossard, who actually ended up scoring a brilliant brace. That tactical shift simply broke the game wide open. That attacking masterclass also resulted in an incredible individual milestone for Kevin De Bruyne. Think about the number 3. By scoring a brilliant pinpoint low strike from outside the box in the 66th minute, he firmly wrote his name into the history books.
Right. By doing so, De Bruyne became the very first Belgian player to ever score in 3 different World Cup editions, having previously found the net in 2014 and 2018. Not only that, but at 34 years and 363 days old, literally just a day shy of his 35th birthday, he also became the oldest player ever to score for Belgium at a World Cup.
It's just a phenomenal testament to his incredible longevity, his vision, and his enduring class on the world stage. But the milestones didn't stop there. Late in the game, coming right off the bench, Romelu Lukaku rose up to head home Belgium's fourth goal of the night. That was his sixth career World Cup goal.
And that officially makes him Belgium's all-time leading World Cup scorer, surpassing the legendary Marc Wilmots. Lukaku had faced so many lingering questions about his fitness and his form heading into this tournament, but silencing the doubters by delivering that record-breaking header right when the team needed to run up the goal difference was just a perfect striker's moment.
You could tell the relief and the vindication after the match were absolutely palpable. Manager Rudy Garcia passionately defended his squad in his post-match press conference, actively pushing back against the intense media scrutiny that had plagued them all week.
Yeah, Garcia said they've been heavily criticized, and I think that's ugly. They've shown on the field that they are immense players, and all Belgians should be proud. There's only one place where we can respond, and that's on the pitch. It was a really powerful, defiant statement. It showed exactly how the squad used that negative noise to rally together, block out the distractions, and just put on a truly dominant performance.
Let's move to our final point, Section 5, Final Standings and Knockouts.
It all came down to the wire on match day 3, with simultaneous games deciding the ultimate fate of all four nations. When the dust finally settled on the West Coast, both Belgium and Egypt finished undefeated with 5 points each, courtesy of 1 win and 2 draws. Because their head-to-head match was a 1-1 draw, the group winner actually had to be decided by a dramatic race for overall goal difference. And this is exactly why Belgium's 5-1 thrashing of New Zealand was so vital. They knew they had to outscore Egypt's efforts on the final day. That massive late attacking push gave Belgium a +4 goal difference, officially crowning them group winners over an incredibly resilient Egypt, who finished just behind them with a +2 goal difference. Iran finished a highly competitive third with 3 points, and New Zealand bowed out in last place with just a single point. But we absolutely have to talk about how incredibly close Iran came to changing this entire table. In their final simultaneous match against Egypt, they played out a deeply tense 1-1 draw. But in the dying, chaotic moments of stoppage time, it looked like they had pulled off an absolute miracle.
It was wild. Shohei Khalilzadeh slammed a loose ball into the net right at the death. The stadium absolutely erupted. The Iranian bench flooded the touchline, fully thinking they had secured an automatic spot in the knockouts. But the heartbreak was imminent. A VAR review determined it was offside. The goal was disallowed, instantly shattering their dreams of advancing automatically and leaving them to agonizingly wait and see if they'd survive as a third-place team. The margins at this elite level are just so brutal.
Which leaves us with one final looming question. How far can Belgium and Egypt actually go in the knockout rounds after surviving the absolute gauntlet of Group G?
It's the perfect question, really. Belgium finally found their devastating attacking rhythm when their backs were completely against the wall, and Egypt has the massive emotional momentum of breaking a 92-year curse. They've both been battle-tested in vastly different ways. We will be watching very closely to see if that early adversity translates into a deep, historic tournament run. Thanks so much for exploring the tactical and historical depths of Group G with us today. We'll see you on the next Explainer.